Basically, it's a tough call. Like after it's just three speakers so far, but all of them have covered. I'm including Ms. Anita too, because her presentation was quite holistic. Uh, so they have covered mostly various aspects of what are the expectations from different people from different walks of life from the banking sector. And one thing which I think Ms. Anita had pointed out earlier in her presentation was the core of it, of where it comes. What do people expect from banks is simple, that their savings have to be protected. So that is one of the fundamental expectations that most people have of banks, that their savings has to be protected. And in India, till now, we still have a very savings oriented mindset and not a investment oriented mindset, though there has been a push towards that, but so far it has not been successful. So that is one of the expectations. But as she and speakers have also put, like that is what is becoming the one of the most tricky part for the common people, because in multiple ways that the saving is being taken off from the hands of the people. And one of the we have seen in the recent past, whether it is in more than one cooperative banks, where they have either lost money directly due to frauds, or due to the regulations put on RBI, or like the bail-in clause, which was supposed to come with the public sector banks, but was used in the cooperative banks. So in that way, the savings were directly taken off. Or in some of the private banks, and as I was mentioning with the public sector banks too, there was a threat of the FRDI bill that the savings of the people will be taken off by the banks. So that was in one way where there was a direct threat to the savings. But in other ways also, one of the main thing is the bank charges that has been started since 2017 by many banks, where when SBI started it and other banks followed suit. And because most of you are bankers here, I'm not going into the details of the charges, but the need of why, and even at a time when during the pandemic, Mr. Raghu has given the conditions that we all are living right now very in detail. Uh, in detail. So even at this time, despite the moratorium, many banks have taken bank charges, and especially those receiving relief, COVID relief fund, even those relief fund was cut off from people's accounts in the name of bank charges. And this is one thing which I think Comrade Franco mentioned earlier. And one of my colleagues, Shivani, she's been collecting these details, and CFA, along with many other organizations, including Safe Public Sector, People's Parliament and all, we are trying to fight against this bank charges, that it has to be taken off, because this came at a time when the banks were making losses due to the corporate loans. And this was very overtly also put by many of the chairpersons of the banks, that we are trying to balance our losses, our operating costs through bank charges. And I think in the chat, like we will try to put some of the details of it where you can go and take it. So this bank charges has been one of the ways in which the banks have been, if I can put the term, looting the customers of their savings. And the other would be in the form of write-offs, like if not directly through charges, like when other presenters have also told here, like how there has been corporate bad loans have been caused by corporate large ticket, big ticket loans. And when those loans fail and there has not been proper recovery, like when we are talking about recovery, and even in the chat, like when bankers write, like we need to recover money, but in the recent time, and none of the recovery policies, whether adopted by the government or RBI, or banks were forced to get into all of those restructuring to IBC or any of these models. They have not really worked. In fact, they have only forced banks to keep more provisions. They have forced banks to take up haircuts. So this again is where it's the common people who are losing. And another colleague of mine, Ashish, had put a RTI in regarding this, where we found that, in the period of 2014 to 2019, because every time the write-off happens, it is being told that this is, write-off is not necessarily a waiver, that we are going to recover the lower money back even if we write off. But only 10% of those loans, bad loans that were written off, only 10% of the money was actually, recovered. So this also clear, like when you have like something to the tune of 6.3 lakh crores that are written off and only 62,220 crores that is actually recovered, it is another way in which the common people are made to pay for, these kind of write-offs. And it is, we need to call that as a corporate loan waiver, because every time there is a loan waiver for farm loans, which are much lesser when compared to these corporate loans, we have a huge, hue and cry from media, from many people that, and even bankers themselves that, I'm saying it because my mother used to work in the bank, and every time there was a, loan waiver announcement, she used to lose it. And she used to always be like, but this is bank's money. But no, it is not bank's money. It is the people's money that you are, as a bank, you're a custodian of it, and you are accountable to the people. And so write-offs is just another way in which the common people are made to pay for these corporate loans. And something which, that keeps coming in many of the presentations is also that, yes, there is a fast moving push towards privatization, towards foreign investments, and a lot of changes within the banking system also. And in one, I'm sorry, I was just looking at the chat of, don't use the term looting for banks or bank charges, but I can't see it in any other way. So I'm not saying bankers personally are looting, but if somebody is losing money without them giving their consent to something of that, because till today banks are running with the deposits, and till today bankers acknowledge that, and especially when banks, commercial banks, public sector banks, which are running on deposits, are made to give big ticket loans or these large scale loans, even when it was decided, they knew, RBI, bankers, government, all of them knew that they would be ending up in a place like this, when small scale deposits are lent on a long term for a long term project, that they would have NPAs. Banks were made to take on the role of a developmental banks, which was not their role at all. So when that was happening, it was an eventuality that many of them, it was like a death foretold, that they said that this is going to happen, and that is what is happening, and the common people are made to pay for it. So technically, it is, how to call it is different, but yeah, people are being robbed of their savings. And we know that, and in many presentations also it has come that, yeah, we are going into privatization. There is going to be a lot of changes. But one thing that bothers is also like the acceptance of it, like whether, yeah, we are opposing it, but at the same time, we need, in some of the press webinars that I've heard, here is also, why do we need privatization when we can do those same work? Like we can work much better. The idea for a public sector institution is not that we can do better than the private, because we need to distinguish like public sector banks and the private in a totally different thing. Like Jayati Ghosh, economist, one of our eminent economists of the country, she used to say, like, she says that public sector banks need to come out of this commercial and market calculations, because their role is to serve the public. And that is precisely where I think Ms. Anita also started with nationalization, and the other presenters with nationalization and social responsibility of the banking. And today, with the large corporate loans that are being given, we are not only jeopardizing the savings of the depositors or the people, but banks from being backbone of the economy, or like a tool for development and bettering the economy. It has invested in places where, or with companies, whether it is SBI or LIC, investing in cluster bombs or in thermal power plants, which are causing environmental hazards, which are causing displacement of people, which are causing, you know, which do not technically bring development, to a lot of people who are affected by the project. So when banks choose to invest in these kind of projects, then they also need to have a safeguard policy, which would, when they are giving big loans, they need to do due diligence, and they need to put in regulations and recovery mechanisms, and there are so many rules. So if banks are doing this, of investing in large scale projects, then they need to have a social and environmental safeguard policy, because the impact of it is irreversible, whether it is on the environment, on the people, on, the social and economic fabric, because most of those projects have today run into losses, and it is neither helping the economy nor helping the banks and somebody else, who are the depositors or the common people who are made to pay for these losses. So it is a lose-lose situation at all, overall, that there are no winners in this current scenario that we are facing right now. And that is precisely why we also need, because we used to think like, even from bankers in 2003, 2004, the initial, unlike the initial phases of privatization and deregulation, and where it was a time of credit boom, where you had more avenues to invest and give credits to. And so it was seen as something that was positive, and something where that is going to take banking to the next level. But in 2020, like, we know what that next level is. So at least now, like, because privatization as a, whether it is in form of the mergers, and even even now, recently you have the Prime Minister and Finance Minister saying that they are going to merge the rest of the banks that are not merged. And as bankers, we know that whether it was SBI or the mergers that happened after that has not really, helped the sector in any ways, or the people. So in that sense, unlike 2003 or 2004, like, now we know that privatization, or this kind of rampant lending policies to large scale companies has not helped the banks, has not taken the banks, but in a way have actually caused it to go back. Like, now that they are making losses, and that has always been the the thing that this government uses, that look, they are making losses, so they don't know to do their work properly, so let us privatize. So, and most of the PSUs, as we see, are made to make losses and then privatized. And bankers and banking sector, from its 69 to 80 phase, has, in a way, is also responsible for the situation that it is in. Like, yes, we have bankers, whether the banking unions or all the other trade unions together, have resisted privatization within banks overall. But slowly what they have done is given more power, whether it is in terms of as Comrade Franco always says, like, of the employment, officer and employee representatives in the boards that are missing, and whether it is dilutions of some of the more stronger regulations which came with the nationalization of the bank. So those kind of regulations, we have slowly let them go, so that now we have a mammoth that is almost like falling, and we don't know what to do, and which, if it falls, is going to hurt all around. So at least now, like, what we expect, like, from civil society, is that yes, we are there to fight for the public sector banks, and be in the fight with you, but also it should come from within the bankers. And because some of the, I mean, we're not telling that you don't, but when you see demands like bank charges, or demands like you know getting finally does not make the cut for the demands that are being placed when unions are going for strikes. So then that does not because give a positive uh, you know feedback to people who are working with the unions, or who are working with the bankers for the public sector banks. So there is a responsibility with the bankers also, that not take all of these regulations, not take, because at the end of the day, like, all the banking unions put together is a huge force. And if they say they are not going to put a policy together, and I do not think RBI or the government can actually force bankers and the unions. And I think one also has to, when we are rethinking about our own this thing, we need to also rethink in terms of what we have, not just learning new things, but also unlearning. It is not that, okay, government has passed the order, RBI has passed the order, so now I'm going to stick to it, and I'm not like I'm going to do it no matter what. So I think it is a symbiotic relation, or like it has to come from both, in terms of and that is our expectation, where bankers do question bank charges, where bankers do question these large scale loans. And because at the end of the day, a commercial banking sector or public sector banks were not meant for, as the other presenter also pointed out, Mr. Shivakumar, that they were not meant for giving these large scale loans, where you give for the small, I mean, individuals and smaller people, entrepreneurs, businessmen, men, women, common person, and include more. So these idea of profitability also we need to rethink, whether it is not profit if we have like more margins from the previous quarter or something like that, but how many people we have reached, how many unbanked people have we reached, and those kind of ideas of how we see profit, in terms of which Professor Dinesh Obral used to say, social criteria of profits. So social profits is, it also needs to be taken into account. So yeah, I think together we can challenge it, but we will want more voice from bankers to be in the public. Thank you.